Calaroga Shark Media. Hello and welcome to Ghost. This episode is titled Schmeetlejuice.
It was a dreary, gothic monstrosity of a mansion that would have sent Vincent Price running for the smelling salts. Turrets, gargoyles, cobwebs thick enough to floss a baleen whale's teeth. This ramshackle pile of architectural leprosy had more schlock-haunted house clichés crammed under one roof than a back-alley pawnshop selling off the Munsters family heirlooms. But for the recently deceased and still decaying Detweiler couple, it represented their last, best hope at eternal rest and repose. Or so the grimoire of forbidden occult lore they'd found gathering dust in the attic had promised. Just recite the ancient rite to summon the ghastly avatar of the underworld general ominously named Schmeetlejuice. Reginald Detweiler wheezed, his desiccated vocal cords rasping like a punctured bellows. His wife, Agatha, already little more than a sentient slab of mottled parlour-room upholstery and a muumuu, harumphed loudly. "Oh, tish-tosh, Reginald, everyone knows those hoary old campfire stories are mere poppy." But she was abruptly cut off as a deeply ominous rolling cloud of eldritch fog began billowing from the mansion's scuffed parquet floors. Within its roiling, pungent vapour, a dark, vaguely humanoid shape began to coalesce and take terrifying form. "Oh, crap, here we go." A gravelly voice like a rolled-up carpet being dragged across a chain-link fence rattled out. "Let me guess. A couple more mofos looking to hire Schmeetlejuice as their own personal polter guide to the other side, right?" With a thunderous belch, the shape solidified into that of a quintessentially grotesque ghoul, fangs, horns, goopy ectoplasmic viscera sloshing beneath tatters of a burlap tunic, the whole misbegotten 9 revolting yards. Reginald's gelid composure fractured as foul-smelling rivulets of panic sweat began oozing down his skull. You're the ghastly general to summon us to our rest eternal? But you look like something even Ed Wood would have given notes on for being too schlocky." The horror was utterly unperturbed, scratching idly at one branchy armpit as it rolled 2 putrescent peahen eyes. Yeah, take my appearance with a grain of cyanide powder, why don't you? Not all of us got to spend the dowager days of our afterlives shacked up in some decaying gothic chondrite, you privileged zipperheads. It then leaned in conspiratorially, a rancid blast of charnel house breath nearly knocking Agatha's toupee into the next realm. "I'll let you salt pillars in on a little secret. We anchors to the profane underworld can get a little jaded about keeping up the old shroud and brimstone floor show, dig?" With a grandiose flourish of its cracked ebon talons, Schmeetlejuice hoisted up the tattered remains of its robe to reveal a pair of red flannel slippers and a cold, dead gaze that would have frozen even Tor Johnson's blood. "This is just the look I like to rock when I'm lounging in my scream pit shooting the foul breeze with the boys. No more muss, no more fuss, you bogwits, dig." Agatha, never one to miss an opportunity for queenly condescension, sniffed in disdain. "Well, really, if this is to be the fearsome usher to eternal rest, with those drafty slippers and that dripping, unwholesome sloven's mouth, I've half a mind to just dematerialize this instant and save myself the agony." "Hey, go ahead and beat feet back to the abyss, worm food," Schmeetlejuice shot back, its putrid tongue lolling like a bloated salamander. "Leave the shortcut of getting your goopy goosed-up spiritual husks on their way to yours cruelly. See if I care when you're stuck menacing gas stations and abandoned mental wings till the end of nights." It gave a bone-rattling belch, then spun in a grotesque parody of a ballet pirouette, seemingly composed of woven entrails and half-decayed squirrel skeletons. "I'm doing you mazed monkeys a solid service here, but if you want to get all corporeal on me, be my guest, you blotched, curdled runts." With that, the horror raised its reeking arms and seemed to almost fold itself inside out. The Detweilers screamed in unified horror as its essence seemed to collapse in upon itself, only to re-emerge as a towering, fungal-encrusted torso with faces oozing from every pore. "Let's rock this wretched Gomorrah till the rats start reciting the Apocrypha in Aramaic." Each one of the gurgling visages howled, a deafening cacophony of sacrilege and existential wrongness. Needless to say, both Reginald and Agatha opted to quit this mortal spectral coil right then and there. But to the Detweiler's eternal misery, old Schmeetlejuice was as crooked as a dog's hind leg. Instead of ushering them to a sweet hereafter, he conscripted the hapless phantasms into an eternity as his personal jesters. For the next several agonizing epochs, the Detweilers found themselves subjected to a never-ending onslaught of tortures and degradations, all while Schmeetlejuice loudly berated them between phlegm-rattling guffaws. "Dance for me, mouldy mundungers!" he'd roar, rearranging their phantasmal essences into sputtering candlesticks or grotesque living marionettes. "Caper and swill till the moon rots from the sky like a mushroomed cancered eye." Other times, the grotesque demon would force them to perform skits and satirical routines, roasting their fellow ghosts, apparitions, and revenants, all to the raucous appreciation of its imp-like minions. "Go on, mock the shade of that scabrous jester who couldn't avoid losing his head in Erzulier's dread guillotine," Schmeetlejuice would command. "Make wicked merry with the miserable phantasm of the Zouave whose trail of standards grows longer than Andre's unmentionables. Revel in their eternal misery, worm turds." And Agatha and Reginald had no choice but to obey, caricaturing and humiliating their fellow damned souls with slanderous aplomb, lest they incur even greater abuses under Schmeetlejuice's vile tutelage. Many a night found the once regal spirits screaming unholy arias of agony into the black-tressed void, their pride and dignity eroded to tattered, ghostly rags. All the while that vile Schmeetlejuice would howl with rapturous, sadistic glee, slapping its brine-crusted, distended belly and stamping those ratty, slippered feet in pure, reveling ecstasy. "You see how the lowliest gutter-haunt's heel outstrips the mightiest of cosmic pretensions," it would mock between phlegm-choked cackles. "To endure eternity in my rancid, worm-riddled graces is to know true torment, you empty, reeking husks." On one particularly harrowing rite, the demon overfiend conjured up phantasmagorical recreations of Reginald and Agatha's former earthly families. Parents, siblings, children, all taking lurid, mutated form to heckle and deride the spirits with obscene fervor. "Oh, mother, father, look how low your precious get has slithered," Spectre Agatha's son Calvin sneered, his voice slurring like a back-alley painted savage. "Reduced to capering like splay-footed jesters for the most bloated of pandemonium's dukes. We should have drowned you unwanted wretchlings in the colic basin when we had the chance, you worm-clotted offal." Reginald's father howled, his profane tongue lashing out like a pale scorpion stinger to flog his son's ghostly husk. Through it all, Schmeetlejuice bellowed in rapturous delight, the only feedback that mattered to the vile poltergeist as it orchestrated its perverse, unholiest of reviews. At long, utterly forsaken last, Reginald could bear no more. With a sudden, startling burst of ghostly bravado, the phantasmal patrician willed his remaining essence into one blazing, indignant yawp of resistance. "Schmeetlejuice, thou blighted sack of demonic filth and pus, we acknowledge thy foul dominion here, but even the lowliest husks retain a merciful scrap of oblivion to escape this clipothic torment. So go ahead. Snuff our miserable ectoplasms out for good if it strokes thy unholiest of." But the ghostly nobleman never got to finish that sentence. For as soon as he dared utter that blasphemous name for the fourth time, a titanic thunderclap rocked the very foundations of the haunted manse. A spiraling vortex of green miasmic energies erupted from the floorboards, lashing out with shards of snapping ectoplasm. At its pulsing, fetid core, the unmistakable features of Schmeetlejuice could briefly be glimpsed. Fangs gnashing, fists shaking in apoplectic fury. "You utter fools!" the demon thing's voice shrieked from 1,000 non-Euclidean angles. "To dare speak my dread name that many times is to invoke the end of the episode." The demon dropped his voice and riffed, "Wow, that's pretty meta." A thick night-gaunt haze blotted out all light and dimension as something vast, bulbous, and palpitating began to descend upon the hapless spirits. Within its grotesque fungoid folds, a panoply of nightmarish sensory inputs assaulted them. The desiccated rustle of cellophane wrappers forever being removed from repugnant gas station snack cakes, the stale, humid stench of a dying man's last exhalations. Poor Reginald and Agatha didn't even have a chance to scream out their terror and revulsion before their psychic essences were absorbed into that transcendingly macabre gestalt of soul-shriveling inanity. Their minds, their senses, their every eternal spark of defiance was simply subsumed. To this day, any foolhardy interlopers who blunder within 1,000 paces of that dread gargoyle-studded pile can sense something other pressing in upon the edges of their perceptions. Perhaps an incessant, repetitive droning, like someone reciting true crime factoids to themselves over and over until the words have lost all coherent meaning. Or maybe the fleeting, soul-curdling shudder of a universe where nothing ever actually happens. Those brave or foolish enough to stray too close soon find themselves overwhelmed with a cloying existential anguish and hasten to remove themselves from that damnable shanty's penumbra. For they know that none are truly safe from the all-consuming, intellect-devouring purgatory. The only way out is to invoke the demon's name 4 times. Schmeetlejuice, 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 Schmeetlejuice.
Ghost is a Calaroga Shark media production, written and hosted by Alexander Ian McIntyre, produced by Mark Francis, executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. Portions of this podcast may have been created with the assistance of AI.
This show, along with hundreds of others from Calaroga Shark Media, is available commercial-free on any player, hassle-free. Just look for the link in the episode or show notes. Ghost now has merch. Find shirts, mugs, and more with the Ghost logo for sale at our merch store. There's free shipping and 10% off now with the coupon NEWMERCH10. Did we say there's free shipping? Check out all the goods at calaroga.com, that's CALOROGA.com, or just look for the link in the show notes. Thanks for supporting the show, we really appreciate it.
Calaroga Shark Media.